Welcome to the Creato Connection, where we broadcast programs of interest to leaders around the world who have made a commitment to operational excellence. You can find our broadcast schedule and enroll in any topic at www.creato.com/events. Producing these programs reflects our commitment to the industry, and we also hope they will introduce us to opportunities to work with leaders like you. You'll find contact information and related offers at the end of this program. The program you've joined is titled Launching and Managing Successful Improvement Projects. Please note that this was a previously recorded event. We will start today with a brief overview of Creato Performance Solutions, followed by our featured program. The next voice you will hear is from CEO of Creato Performance Solutions, Mr. Ian Lazarus.
Hello everybody, it's Ian Lazarus. Thank you for joining us today for our program Launching and Managing Successful Improvement Projects. You know, Creato will celebrate its 20th year anniversary this year, and from the very beginning we believe that leaders should have all the tools they need to excel in their mission. We've been quite successful in achieving that mission, having demonstrated a 7-to-1 return on investment from 150 different projects that we evaluated over the past 10 years. Those returns are not limited to financial gain. We're also very proud of the fact that we have supported 3 organizations in their efforts to secure the prestigious Malcolm Baldrige Award for Excellence. And in each of those cases, the organization acknowledged they could not have earned the recognition without our help. We do an enormous amount of publishing, would invite you to visit us at www.creato.com, where you will find many resources you can download for the purposes of educating internally. And if we have the privilege of serving you, you can be very confident that an individual will show up from Creato that is very experienced. Most of the people in our company have been with us from the very beginning, and these are individuals that will immediately be able to establish rapport with your staff and an understanding of the challenges that you face. So what stands in the way of improvement is something that we have been studying now for nearly 20 years, and we like to ask the rather provocative question, do you really think that a robust and reliable method is enough in order to achieve an improved outcome that is sustainable? And if you've heard these things in your organization, you probably realize that a method alone is not enough. Inevitably, people are going to express their skepticism, their resistance. You may have heard these as well as other things that demonstrate that people are really not ready to necessarily get on board with a project initiative merely because you think it's a good idea or because you think you've got a proven methodology. What's really critical for folks in the improvement field is that they not only select good project opportunities, but they execute those projects in a very disciplined manner. We need to be better, faster, and cheaper if we want to gain and sustain the support of management and people around us. So let's jump into our findings. We have studied diligently the results of 600 projects that either failed to meet their timelines or their outcomes. And we're going to review with you today the 5 things that you must do in order to avoid those failures. The first, most common, most significant reason why projects fail is that they are simply not the management's priority. Those of you that are familiar with Lean or Six Sigma will be familiar with the phrase, the voice of the customer. Typically, we apply the voice of the customer to an identification of the outcomes that are critical in the minds of that customer. Those customers can be employees, patients, physicians, customers, but inevitably the most important customer whose voice you need to be concerned with is the management's concern, the management's voice. If the management does not believe that your project is a priority, then you will neither get the time, resources, or money necessary to undertake that effort, and you will become frustrated. Worse than this, if you feel you have the management support and you go down the road of beginning a project, you may find that they get distracted and you will be starved for resources and become even more frustrated. The management team should be viewed as the project team's #1 customer, and teams must work on projects that are the highest priority in the mind of the management team. Now, often the management team will turn to the rank and file and ask them what they think is important, and that's fine. It's very good to have that back and forth dialogue. But inevitably, management must sign on with their verbal, if not written, support for the project that you have in mind. So how do you go about identifying those priorities? Well, again, a good debate is healthy. At the end of the day, we need to find some rational way of prioritizing the improvement opportunities in an organization. And here we have a tool that you can take and run with and is better than nothing in trying to ferret out the most compelling opportunities. Here you have a series of mutually exclusive criteria. You can establish the merits of one project versus another. This is something that can be the subject of a pencil and paper exercise, or you can load it into Excel or into a macro. What you're doing when you're using this kind of a document is you're moving closer toward what we call project portfolio management, where you're cognizant of the constraints and the risks involved in projects, not only just the benefits, but weighing both and coming up with the most compelling opportunity. Pencil and paper is fine if you have nothing better, but we'd like to introduce you to the concept of using the Compass Quality Management System, which both combines idea management and project management in one platform. And throughout today's program, we're just going to jump very briefly into Compass to give you a sense of an application that might make your job easier. So starting with project selection, we'll go into Compass and show you how easy it is to identify the most important priorities for the organization using the democratic tools within the Compass Quality Management System. What I'm showing you here is the main menu for Compass. You can see that we have our logo in the upper left-hand corner. When we deploy Compass to an organization, it's actually your logo, so your people know that they're in their system. And here you can see different modules giving you access to the idea management portal, the process improvement portal where live projects are being managed, tools and training, as well as reports, support, and other features. We're just going to jump very quickly here in to show you the idea management module within Compass, and Compass gives you the opportunity to manage your own ideas as well as to have visibility into the ideas of other individuals in the organization. You can look and see if an idea is already in the system, so you're not putting in a redundant idea. You can look at ideas by department and by facility to make certain that you are not putting in something that's in there already. I like to say also this is where perception meets reality. On the left-hand side, you have individuals voting on the different ideas. On the right-hand side, you have the objective scoring established by the software. So perception and reality truly come together here, and with just a single click, you can identify the projects that have the greatest level of support across the organization, as well as opportunities that may have the highest overall objective score. You're probably wondering how scores get into the system. Ideas come in here, and the very same information that I showed you just a moment ago on that spreadsheet is now automated here in the Compass Quality Management System through the process of establishing these responses based on impact and risk. Compass is calculating the overall score, representing the overall value of this project to the organization. By the way, all the fields that you see here are customizable. So with very little effort, an individual can begin the process of articulating an idea. That idea will stay in their own personal queue until they release it to the organization so that it is visible to other people, and then can go through the process of being vetted and scored and rated both by individuals as well as management. By the way, Compass will keep you organized through a series of notifications, so you're always aware of when your idea is getting attention from others. You'll also get confidential feedback from the management team if appropriate. So whether you're using a pencil and paper instrument or enjoying the benefit of an automated solution like Compass, it's absolutely critical that you have a thorough vetting process for ideas before they become live projects. The next challenge is to find strong champion support. Now, in our world, a champion means something very specific. The champion is an individual in your organization that can reduce roadblocks to success. That individual is generally available to you, and they stand to gain the most from the results of your project. Often this is a project where the champion is responsible for the process, where their evaluation can rise or fall based on the success of a particular process that you're proposing to improve. If this is a cycle time project or a throughput project, it shouldn't be too difficult to find the champion with the most to gain from that particular project. I cannot stress enough that the availability is key. If the champion is not available to support you, they cannot practice servant leadership, they cannot break down obstacles for you to your achievement. From time to time, you're likely to hit roadblocks, and a project champion's first priority is to detect and remove these roadblocks. But if a champion is so busy that they're not even aware of the roadblocks, you need to make the commitment to meet with them regularly. And if they stand to gain from the result of your project, hopefully they will make that time available to you. Next, we turn to the issue of project scope. I'm sure we have all been subject to projects which went beyond their scope through what we call scope creep. It's not a pleasant exercise when you find that you're trying to do way too much, and this leads to situations in which the original anticipated benefits are not achievable, or the project simply takes too long. Once a project concept has been selected, it should be properly scoped. And what we have to keep in mind is that management needs to be engaged from the very beginning until the very end of this project, because at the very end of this project is when we will be asking management to support our recommendations. And the likelihood that management will remain engaged will decline if this project takes more than, say, 3 months. Now, certainly there are some projects in the Six Sigma realm that, due to their complexity, may go beyond 3 months, but it's absolutely critical to keep the momentum going on these projects, and a properly scoped project will allow you to complete the project within a reasonable period of time. A very simple exercise to ensure that you have the project scope properly set is to ask if the goal is a SMART goal. This may be an acronym that you are familiar with. It's worth repeating here. A SMART goal is one that is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. That last element being critical because that would allow us to hopefully stay within the approximate amount of time it should take for us to complete the project in the first place. Now, Compass has many project scoping tools. We don't have enough time to share them all with you, but I would like to give you some visibility into what's available in the Compass application. So we're going to go back to that live application here. Here again, you can see the live Compass application. We showed you earlier how ideas become evaluated within the application. Now let's take a look at the toolbox. As you can see here, it's quite robust. These are organized according to the DMAIC process, the successive stages of defining, measuring, analyzing, improving, and controlling a process. If you're scoping a project, you're most likely to find the tools of most value down here under this first column. You'll probably see some phrases here that you're familiar with: the Pareto analysis, value stream map. We're going to take a look at just a couple of these, and then we'll return to some of the other obstacles to achieving timely completion of a project. And so all of the Compass tools will begin the same way, with what will become a familiar blue box, an option on the left-hand side to begin, an option on the right-hand side, which might include viewing your work, producing a report, copying into another format. This is the picture frame scoping tool. It may not render perfectly on your screen in terms of how the content is centered, but let's go ahead and take a look at how it works. And this is a tool we're happy to offer you. Very simple scoping tool, and we use the same approach in every one of the tools. We call this the interview method. If you know your name and today's date, you're well on your way. Just answer the questions. And the Compass system will actually prepare the tool for you. We're using coffee preparation just as sort of a fun example. At some point after you're done answering the questions, you'll be provided with a workspace. I've went ahead and started this tool already, in that we're looking at coffee preparation. Some of the concerns that we have inside the picture frame include the quality of the beans, the temperature of the water, freshness of the milk, and the quality of filters that we're using in our machine. And things that are on the frame in this particular exercise are items that we're not entirely sure about yet. They require further discussion and debate. Those outside the frame we're setting aside and are not within the scope of our project. So if our project happens to be concerned with the preparation of an ideal cup of coffee, we're saying for the time being that that does not include some of the fancier coffees that you might get at your local Starbucks. We're just concerned with traditional coffee. We're not concerning ourselves with the receptacle, whether it's china or styrofoam. We absolutely want to focus on the quality of the beans, the temperature of the water, freshness of the milk, and the filters that are being used in our machine. Right now, we're not sure if sugar is a consideration. We may bring that into scope later on. That's going to be a decision that we'll leave for another day. Maybe the group will later decide that it belongs in the scope, in which case we just drag and drop it in here, as you're seeing me do here. We may decide that the quality of the water, defined as the total dissolved solids in parts per million, is not going to be a consideration for the first phase of this project, so we're putting it outside the frame. We may come up with additional ideas through the course of discussion. Maybe we'll decide that the quality of the machine is something that we want to be concerned about, and so we'll bring that into scope. So this can be an iterative approach in defining the scope of the project with a team. You can do this on a whiteboard and transfer it here into the tool, or you can just work within the tool as I've been doing here. At the end of the day, what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to show everything either in scope or out of scope. Items that might become dispositioned on the frame for discussion need to be dispositioned at some point either inside or out of scope, so that we reduce the ambiguity around what we're concerned with in terms of the scope of this particular project. So I'm going to put that again outside the scope. The Compass tools include the ability to print directly from the screen or to copy and paste into a PowerPoint slide. So if I was to click the copy button, not sure how well you can see this on your screen, but Compass has painted a perimeter around my workspace. I can now go directly into a PowerPoint slide and print it or paste it into that PowerPoint slide. That's a very simple tool we're prepared to offer you. Let me show you another little slightly more sophisticated tool. This is known as a SIPOC. Stands for suppliers, inputs, process, outputs, and customers. Again, that familiar blue box gives me a couple of options. I can start a new SIPOC, or I can produce a report for an existing one, which would be the last SIPOC I produced with the tool. This again will take me through the interview process, answer the questions. I'm well on my way. Again, we're concerned with producing a good cup of coffee. That's the process. The critical metric in this case is going to be the temperature. I like my coffee to be a very specific temperature, not too hot, not too cold. At some point after completing the interview, I'm going to be provided with a workspace along with some instructions on how to prepare the high-level process map. I'll just get rid of those instructions and show you that we have some of the traditional process mapping tools here. I've already went ahead and designated the various steps necessary to produce my cup of coffee. And then it's going to ask me for the suppliers and for the customers. So I have a series of suppliers here. This would include the team responsible for the first shift, supermarket where the supplies were procured, maybe an office supply store for cups and stirs and sugar, and the bean supplier. My inputs include the beans, the water, the grinder, the milk, sugar, coffee maker, and cups. The outputs is going to include the safety of the product, the quality, delivery, cost, taste, and temperature. The customers are people that may be in my work environment, as well as customers if I'm selling the coffee. And there you have it. The results of the interview were merged into a nice little report here in the upper left-hand corner, providing us with the members of the team, the suppliers, inputs, outputs, and customers are all listed here in a nice clean diagram. On the right-hand side, you have the high-level process flow diagram showing us where we organize the supplies, where we grind the coffee, where we measure the water, put it into our machine, and brew the product. This can also be copied and pasted into a PowerPoint slide. It can be printed off and taken into a meeting. SIPOCs are very popular scoping tools for project teams to make certain not only that you're aware of the scope, but they are also quite aware and sensitive to the variables, both going into the process and coming out of the process. So the next critical success factor that we have in completing projects on time and on budget is simply the execution of those projects. And this is really where the rubber meets the road, isn't it? This is one of the significant obstacles to completing projects, is the execution according to a disciplined standard operating procedure. Now, the slide here talks about a poor DMAIC execution, which of course DMAIC is the Six Sigma methodology, but really any project that is not subject to a disciplined work plan is going to wander. It's really quite reminiscent of the quote made famous in Alice in Wonderland, that if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. But what Lewis Carroll doesn't tell us is that you're not likely to end up in a good place unless you have a roadmap. And so it all comes down to commitment to a method. Whether it's DMAIC, Lean, PDSA, or any homegrown methodology, adherence to a method is absolutely critical. Think of it as a standard operating procedure, like you have in other aspects of your work environment. When you follow an SOP, you're reducing variation. You're less likely to go down some of these rabbit holes, no pun intended, that will lead you astray and cause your project to move in the wrong direction. So executing according to a contemporary methodology is a critical success factor in completing your project. Fortunately, there's many tools within Compass that can support effective project execution. We're just going to have a minute to look into this briefly. So let's go back to our live application. Here again, you see the main menu to Compass. You see now that we have actually looked at how ideas come into the system, and we've looked at how you can use tools to scope a project. Now we're going to look into the area in Compass where live projects reside, and you can see I have many projects in here that are assigned to me. This can be configured in multiple ways. If you want to have visibility into other people's projects, if you are a mentor or a coach, you can have that privilege. Let's just grab one of these projects at random here. Reducing abandonment in a call center is a common challenge for large organizations. And here Compass has given us the DMAIC methodology and available in what we call accordion format, so we can open and close the sections that we happen to be focused on at any point in time. Now, Compass is agnostic to the method. If you are using PDSA, Compass can present that method to you. Kaizen, A3, Lean, Design for Six Sigma, it really doesn't matter. All the methods are in Compass already. When you launch a project, you assign the methodology to that project. And then you work down the method. These are just like, you might think of these if you're in the healthcare industry as a clinical protocol. Clinical protocols are intended to keep not only the patient safe, but also the practitioner safe. Follow the protocol and you'll produce a good result. We think of these the same way within the Compass program. Follow these steps and you'll produce a good result for your project. In this particular case, you can see we're about halfway through the measure phase, and the next step being called for is a value stream analysis. If we have not done a value stream analysis before, we might want to look at the training that's available. Compass will actually recommend the best training based on where you are in the project. And if you find the module that you're looking for, you can tell Compass to go and get me the training. If on the other hand, you do value stream maps all day long, you don't need any training, you just want the tool, that being the case, Compass makes it easy to find the right thing. It will only recommend the best tools based on where you are in the project. Because we're in the measure phase, it's going to recommend descriptive statistics and mapping tools, and sure enough, there's our value stream map tool, and we can tell Compass, don't get me the training, get me the tool instead. So we want to make it easy to do the right thing, and also to guide you through the execution of your project according to a well-grounded, well-established contemporary methodology. The final of our critical success factors is project communication. And of course, we all know that you cannot communicate enough. And yet we fail to do it in many cases. And it's really comes down to the fact that most projects that are worth doing are inevitably multidisciplinary. They're crossing over department lines, and the number of stakeholders that might be relevant may be ambiguous to you. It's difficult to keep up with all the folks that need to be kept aware. And frankly, you don't want to spend entire afternoons producing reports because that's not fixing anything. You want communication to be efficient and effective, and you want it to be easy to do. Fortunately, again, there are many ways in which we can do this in Compass, which we'll turn to in a moment, but just so we can appreciate the different layers of communication that are necessary. If you're running that project team and as you are moving through the successive stages of defining, measuring, analyzing, improving, and control, or whatever methodology you're using, it's absolutely essential to keep the champion up to date so that individual can be prepared to break down any obstacles for you. Tollgate reviews are a great way to communicate in the organization across broad audiences, bringing people together to let them know the progress of your project. Participation can be voluntary, but frankly, we want to use this as an opportunity to communicate broadly, demonstrate our progress, request support, and also, frankly, to just inform others about what's going on in the organization. So if you don't practice tollgate reviews in your organization, you should advocate that the leadership adopt this practice. Just pick a date once a month. People that are involved in running projects have the opportunity to present at those tollgates. If they are in a certification program, the tollgate can be an effective way of validating that they can move on in their project and move towards earning the credential that they are seeking. Then finally, of course, there are the stakeholders, and this can be members of the team, it can be members of the department, it can be members of senior management, it can be board members. Again, this can be a very large audience, and obviously communicating to all of these broad out audiences can be very exhausting. Finally, at the end of the project, you want to close out the project, but you also want to have everybody in agreement that the project goals have been met, and that requires communication as well. So as I mentioned to you, project communication is something that Compass does very effectively. I'd like to show you just how easy that can be. With one click, you can literally communicate with all those audiences that I just mentioned. We're back to the main menu in Compass, and just quick review. We looked at how ideas come into the system. I showed you where projects get managed. We showed you the toolbox. We didn't get into the lean training guide, but that's just-in-time training. That is the same training sold by the American Society for Quality, and we'd be happy to offer you a demonstration of that. The reporting portal is where most stakeholders will get their information. You get a very clean view at first of all the activity in the database, but you also have links into much more information. So if you were looking for the workload of individuals and the progress of projects that they happen to be involved in, you can find that here. The number of individuals and the number of projects will give you a sense of whether someone can take on yet one more responsibility. If you wanted to look at the impact of projects across the enterprise, you probably want to look at completed projects. So we would move from active to completed projects, and Compass will present us with a nice, clean return on investment report. In the spirit of communication, you can take those reports and you can push them to other audiences, either as an Excel file, PDF, or Word, so you can communicate broadly that way. But let me show you one of the coolest features I think that we have in this system. And that is to be able to, with one click, send an A3 report to as many stakeholders as you wish. Here is the part of Compass where the stakeholders are recorded, and we can have as many email addresses in here as we wish. They can be Compass users or not Compass users. They don't necessarily even need to have a license to Compass. But whenever we finish any work within Compass, the last thing we want to do is click this button, Send Project Update. Compass will sweep up all the email addresses of individuals that were defined to this project and send them a one-page A3 report. I'll show you what that report looks like right now. So this happened to be a project that we was titled Abandonment in the Call Center. So let's just take a shortcut here and find that report in here. There it is. And many of you are probably familiar with the A3 report. It's a common standard for reporting for project progress in organizations. Many people spend an inordinate amount of time preparing these reports for consumption by internal audiences. But for Compass, it's a very straightforward proposition. It's done in real time, and here you can see it. This A3 report will be emailed out to all of the stakeholders with one click. And so they're getting that communication with very little effort on your part. If they get that email, they can click right back through into Compass. They can push this report to other audiences, as you can see here, in different formats. And if they want to look at all the information behind this report, one click will bring them to all the documentation that is relevant for this particular project. Here you can see we're in SharePoint. We actually integrate with SharePoint. We push all of our tools out to SharePoint, so project leaders are organized from the very first day. Here you can see the various folders for different tools that Compass has pushed out to SharePoint. And through the timestamps, you can actually see the latest, greatest activity. So if someone is clicking through here and they want to see whatever has been added most recently, the timestamps will facilitate that. You're organized, you're indexing your work, you're creating an institutional memory, and if years from now you want to find that SIPOC for ABC project, you're always going to know where it is. No matter the project, is always going to be in the same folder. So we're helping our organizations to really configure their SharePoint or whatever document management system they have in a much more effective manner. So with that as background on how to avoid the many pitfalls of projects that lose their direction and take too long or cost too much, I'd like to show you an example of a project that was completed by Compass with all Compass tools being cut and paste into PowerPoint. We're going to move through this quickly, and then if you have a few more minutes, full Compass demonstration will be provided to you. This is an onboarding project. This is a common challenge in rapidly growing organizations. We're simulating this project within Compass. Compass produced all the tools that you're going to see here. In our make-believe project, the initial scope was from the identification of the need of a new hire to the posting of a position. As we often find in projects, the scope changed a little bit as we got into our discovery phase and revealed some important information. We stored all of the information that we were gathering both on the desktop and out in SharePoint, and then we copied and pasted them into this particular presentation. First document that we produced is the project charter. This is a tool within Compass. It allows us to record the parameters of the project, the participants in the project, the anticipated timeframes for completion of the project, and the all important problem statement, an unambiguous statement to build the business case for investing resources and time in this particular project opportunity. Problem statement suggests it takes an average of 6 weeks from the approval of a new hire to the posting of a position. This is an unacceptable delay, and it results in a domino effect where the organization is unable to staff appropriately. You might recall the picture frame that I showed earlier. Our picture frame here suggests that we've got a number of things within the scope that we're going to be concerned with. We're not going to focus on any new hire that is being identified through executive recruiters. We expect that to be subject to a different process. We're unsure at the moment if we're going to look into exception investigation. That's when the due diligence process might reveal that someone has maybe a felony on their record, and that's going to inevitably cause a significant delay. We're not sure if we're going to look at regional offices versus the headquarters. So these are two things on the picture frame that would need to be dispositioned later in our project. Here again, a familiar tool now that you've been this far in the program is the SIPOC. We laid out the high-level process flow map for how new hires come into the organization, as well as the suppliers, inputs, outputs, and customers. It took me about 10 minutes to produce the SIPOC and about 30 seconds to cut and paste it into Compass. Stakeholder analysis allows us to anticipate any areas of resistance for which we might want to be proactive. We generally expect people to be supportive of this project. We might find human resources to be a little resistant if they see this as meddling into an area that is their jurisdiction. We might find the quality department as being concerned that expedience would be at the expense of quality new hires. And so this gives us a little bit of a understanding of where we might want to be proactive in our communications. As we move into the measure phase, one of the first things that we wanted to do was to establish a baseline of the performance of the process. And in so doing, we found that it actually performed worse than we expected. It actually takes almost 100 days from requisition to posting a position. And this is a very common occurrence when the problem is found to be worse than we thought originally, and does nothing more than actually reinforce the need and the urgency around solving this problem. Compass, by the way, produces a report that you can take into a meeting. I didn't type any of the content that you see up here. Simply by answering the questions during the interview process for this tool, the algorithms and back-end calculations done by Compass allows it to produce a management report that I can print off and bring into a meeting. I wouldn't normally put this in a PowerPoint presentation, but simply wanted to give you an understanding that that's another feature within this application. We produce a box plot to compare headquarters to regional offices, and by this comparison, we can see that there is indeed a pretty significant difference between headquarters and regional offices. The regional offices perform even worse than headquarters. So remembering back on that picture frame where we had regional offices on the frame, we would probably at this point want to bring that in to the frame, and because then we will be able to improve the performance of those regional offices. We can also identify some best practices probably within the headquarters that can be extended out to those regional offices. Finally, a capability analysis. This is a Six Sigma tool, allows us to answer the question, is this process even capable of producing a good result most of the time? We put a red line there that represents our upper specification limit of 100 days, as if to suggest there is no reason ever that this process should take longer than 100 days. But if you look to the right of that red line, you can see that this process does not perform very well, whereas in most cases we have failures rather than successes. In fact, this is a case where we have a negative sigma level for this particular process. Moving into the analyze phase, one of the first things we did was produce a process flow diagram. There's a lot to unpack here, and it's probably hard to read all the information in this process flow diagram, but you actually don't need to be able to read the inside of the boxes to notice something very unusual about this process. We talk about the diamonds as being the decision point as to whether the process will move forward or back. And if you want to look for a complicated process, you need only look for the diamonds. In this particular case, we see 3 diamonds in succession that occur after the job after the job has already been posted and the applications have been offered to candidates. So this is actually outside the current scope of the process, and yet seems to be the most complicated part. And so without even having to understand much more than that, we can look at this process flow diagram and see our scope is probably not where it needs to be. And we may be able to actually confer some benefit if we go slightly outside the scope, expand the scope at least as much to accommodate the application process for individuals once the job has already been posted. On the right-hand side, you can actually see here what we call the sawtooth diagram that reveals the non-value added time versus the value added time. And it's not uncommon at all for the non-value added time to far exceed the value added time. It gives us an opportunity to focus our efforts on reducing that non-value added time as we pursue the future state of this process. Fishbone diagram is a popular tool looking at 6 different criteria. Often we call it the 6 M's, manpower, methods, machines, materials, measurement, Mother Nature. Sometimes these are recast as being more politically correct. Instead of Mother Nature, we might say environment. Instead of manpower, we might say people. Nevertheless, we're able to identify some of the root causes here as to why it takes so long to onboard new hires. In Compass, you can take your fishbone and recast it as a Pareto diagram and take this into a meeting. By doing so, we can very quickly reveal the single most significant determinant of delays. In this case, it's unnecessary documentation, as you can see here on the far left. Cause and effect matrix, also produced by Compass, allows us to understand that from the standpoint of the hiring manager, extending the offer on a timely basis is the most important thing to accomplish. Next, we have the FMEA, the Failure Modes Effects Analysis, and frankly, Compass is showing off at this point. This is a tool that is a very useful tool for scoping possible interventions. FMEAs are required by many accrediting organizations. It's a Compass tool. An FMEA will set forth the severity of a failure mode, how frequently it happens, and the extent to which you are able to detect and mitigate those errors before they reach customers. So Here again, this is a great tool that is in Compass that can help you in this case along the way to identify the interventions that are going to have the greatest impact on this particular project. Speaking of interventions and moving into the improve phase where those interventions would be identified, we have the 4-quadrant matrix as a way of sort of summarizing those things that we want to try first. In this case, we want to focus on the items in the upper right-hand corner, easy to do, high impact. And the things that we've decided on is that we will increase the frequency of checking in with the HR department to mitigate delays in posting positions. We're going to work with them to clarify the application requirements, which, as you might recall from the process flow diagram, gave rise to a whole bunch of diamonds and delays in the process. We're also going to try to make this a more intimate process by relying more on the telephone and less on snail mail for the purposes of recruiting our preferred candidate. This is one of the few slides in my deck that is not a Compass tool, and it summarizes those interventions. For the purposes of our tollgate presentation, we want to make it clear to everybody what we were going to do. It's uncommon that we would try 3 things or 4 things at once because there's always the potential that one intervention improves matters while the others makes it worse. But in this particular case, the interventions all impact one discrete part of the process. So we feel confident that there won't be any confusion or situations where one improvement is offsetting the gains of another. Sure enough, the intervention worked for the purposes of posting the position, which was originally close to 100 days. Now we see it's at 72. So we did something that was right. Probably checking in with the HR department made a difference in clarifying any questions that they had. Sometimes in projects, it's obvious to the naked eye that the improvement was significant. Sometimes it's not so obvious, and you might want to draw upon a more sophisticated tool for the purposes of demonstrating your point. Well, Compass provides those as well. This is known as the Moods median test, a comparison of medians. Compass also has t-tests. It also has a test of 2 means and 2 variances. All of the inferential statistical tests that you might find in products like Minitab or Sigma Excel are in Compass as well. One of the key differences, though, is Compass also gives you the practical interpretation at the bottom of the slide. So you don't need a degree in statistics to know what Compass is telling you about the comparison of the before and after. In this case, Compass calls it the current state versus the future state. The future state is the performance of the process after the intervention. The current state is the performance before. And again, to the naked eye, you can see here, the future state performs with less variation and performs with a shorter cycle time. So it's a pretty compelling case for the future state. Compass also gives you the p-value, which tells you that without ambiguity, this is a process that is operating under different physics. It is not due to random variation that we see these differences. These are 2 different processes operating under very different physics. So we're going to institutionalize these changes, and we're going to do that in a control plan. The control plan will set forth the conditions under which we would know whether or not the process was in control or not. Another Compass tool, as you can see here. And the whole point of the control plan is that we don't overreact if we have a bad day, but that we have greater granular view into the sub-processes that make this process work efficiently. So we're going to look at, under the first column, the meetings with the HR department before posting. We're going to monitor the day it takes to post the position. We're going to monitor the hiring manager's commitment to make the phone calls, to bring that candidate close to us, and then to extend them the offer. So control plan represents the end of the project, and for the purposes of demonstrating that the project has been closed, this is really the key document, and it will be handed off to the process owner that can hopefully monitor the quality of the process going forward. Folks, this is a formula that works quite well. As I mentioned at the outset, we've monitored 150 different projects over the past 10 years and found a return on investment of 7 to 1 from those projects. And we can help you get there. Very quickly, we do 3 things for organizations. We train in the principles of Lean and or Six Sigma. Our training is offered online and on-site in any combination. Our online training is actually offered by ASQ all over the world. We also work with leadership groups so that they can understand how to create an accepting environment for change. This takes the form of a 2-day program. This program is offered by the American College of Healthcare Executives all over the US, but more often we bring it directly to you, and we work in all industries. Once we work with leadership, we move into candidate assessment, which is selecting the individuals that are going to be best qualified to enter our training programs. We know we're not doing anybody any favors if we bring in somebody that we expect will struggle. With candidate assessment, we get the right people on the bus and get people that are going to be very effective as candidates for the Lean and Six Sigma methodologies. We launch projects in Compass, so we get the early adoption of this technology, but we also license Compass to organizations perhaps like yours that already have very mature programs. Compass has been designated as best in class according to G2 Crowd for project management and portfolio project management, otherwise known as PPM. Compass was also recognized as one of the top 20 quality management systems for 2017 and 2018 by CIO Review Magazine. When we work with organizations, we pursue the deployment of our resources in a very disciplined fashion. We start with the leadership and helping them understand how to create an accepting environment for change. We then move through the process of candidate assessment to find the individuals that we will put into our training programs for Lean and Six Sigma. We then come on site and we also launch our online training at the same time because everybody likes to learn a little differently. They'll have different options. We launch the projects in Compass so people are supported from the very first day. We graduate students that are eligible for certification in either Lean or Six Sigma, and then we repeat the cycle because inevitably many ideas came forward through this process that can be launched as a second round of projects. That completes our program for today, although we are going to move next into a very, very short demonstration of the Compass Quality Management System, no more than 5 minutes. I hope you'll stay on for that. And I hope you'll let us know if there's anything we can do to help you. We can send you some of the tools that you've seen during this program. Happy to do that. Answer any questions that you may have about our approach and or schedule a remote demonstration of the Compass Quality Management System for your organization. Thanks again for joining us today. Look for future programs at credo.com/events or /connection. Our free training programs are located there, and make it a great rest of your day. Bye, everybody.
Welcome to this brief demonstration of the award-winning Compass Quality Management System. Compass will literally put improvement on autopilot in your organization, completing more projects faster, and projects with greater returns. Your team will be given the tools, support, and direction necessary to drive your efforts at operational excellence and business transformation. In other words, no matter how you look at it, Compass pays for itself. No other comparable application contains as many features or as much value for the dollar. Let me show you some of the features of Compass that will support breakthrough improvement in your organization. Users can quickly add an idea to Compass by indicating the anticipated value to your organization and the specific business case. Our impact risk matrix will frame the business opportunity with little effort, while the system prioritizes the idea for comparison to others. From the very first screen, Compass improves employee engagement while creating a robust pipeline of opportunities. And by the way, most of the fields you see here are actually customizable. Leverage employee feedback in Compass by comparing perception to reality for improvement opportunities. Users can comment and rate ideas, while management compares workforce support to objective criteria. Your management and quality team can review the merits of each idea and resource those with greatest potential. Dynamic sorting helps you evaluate the range of opportunities more effectively than a static spreadsheet. In other words, Compass helps you to not only do things right, but to do the right things. It's no wonder Compass has been recognized as the #1 idea management system compared to over 75 other applications on G2Crowd.com. Management can send feedback to users from within Compass. Show your staff that you appreciate their initiative. Ask others for the information you need. You'll be promoting collaboration and establishing accountabilities up front while communicating your support. Once an idea is approved, Compass will help drive your project. This becomes the handoff within Compass from management to staff. Compass makes it easy to do the right thing by guiding the user through project work, providing tools and support, and a place for documentation. Need a little direction before performing a value stream analysis? Tell Compass to get me the tool, or even get me the training. Jump into the Lean online training available also from ASQ, now incorporated within Compass. This is a highly evolved program including professional audio, exercises, learning games, and case studies. At any time, send an updated A3 report to your team and stakeholders, and Compass will not only create the report, it will drop it into an email for you. Compass is compatible with PDCA, Lean, Six Sigma, ISO 9001, and any improvement method you use in your organization. Compass is a high performer for enterprise project management on G2 Crowd, and it's one of this year's top quality management systems according to CIO Review. Compass includes the entire body of knowledge for Lean to support staff new to improvement work, and it even integrates readily with SharePoint for your own intranet, enabling you to create a turnkey collaborative environment. Compass offers a highly flexible user-driven reporting portal. You can view reports in an A3 format or reports with a global view. Reports offer the ability to monitor all activity, progress against goals, and return on investment. Compass puts improvements on autopilot by automatically advising staff if their projects are ahead, behind, or missing data. Finally, we can't talk about Compass without showcasing our robust tools. Compass will literally interview each user and build a tool based on your specific needs, allowing you to create everything from a value stream analysis, Gantt or control chart, to computerized simulation. Compass can replace annual spending on dozens of disparate applications in many organizations. Bring order to chaos as Compass guides your team through the completion of projects, and management achieves true line of sight into all improvement activity in the organization. Finish more improvement projects, finish projects faster, and finish projects with stronger results. All within the guidance of your Compass. Compass.